we're not investing in the squad. We're going to miss out on Champions League, and we're going to play the likes of Ostersund and Krasnodar in a 60k seat stadium, which we're not going to sell out. So I don't see the point in the stadium in the first place. You know, renovate, make a new stand, maybe like Liverpool did on current Stamford Bridge. Don't renovate it. Don't build a new one.
I don't think they would. I think I can't remember fully. I'm paraphrasing, but I definitely know there wasn't an option to, you know, get a new stand, because that I do remember that was an option they looked at, but it wasn't a possible thing. They had to structure.
Yeah,
Eunice?
Well, even still.
Yeah, no, apparently renovating isn't possible. The fact that there's train tracks on the other side, I forgot what stand it is, the east end, the west end. We can't push out further. You can't build higher. The same goes for the other side because of the housing. And then the other two stands behind the goals are just, it's impossible to renovate either way. So you've got to build and do all of it. But I agree. I agree with Lawrence. If we were talking about a capacity stadium that hit 70, 80,000, I'd be like, okay. But we're doing all of this for an extra 17,000 or 18,000 seats.
That's still quite a lot, though, because I mean, if Stamford Bridge is like 42,000 capacity, an extra 16,000 is like what, 40% more. So it does make a difference. Remember, a stadium, you don't rebuild a stadium every 10 years. You know, a stadium is something that lasts you probably 50 years or even more. So this is a massive investment. That here's the thing, you know, sometimes I think in context of certain stuff like that, we've got to look at the long-term thing, because with investments like that, that's so because we'll still be fans in 20 years time. It's going to be completely different. Things will look way more positive now. I mean, we can't predict what's going to happen, but you have to put these safeguards down where, well, financially, I think it's a good investment, because Chelsea do have plans of wanting to be one of the best clubs in Europe. So you need a stadium to match something like that. And I don't know if it's possible where, let's say, for example, you can, extend, get extensions with the, in terms of the capacity in the future. I don't know the planning permissions, or
probably not, because of the limited space. I think it's basically, an architectural miracle that we can even build a 60k seater stadium there, because it's the same architects that planned the Allianz Arena for Bayern Munich, for example, and they had like almost double the space to use. And I do completely understand your point. I just feel like maybe this is the wrong time to do it because of the way the transfer market for football players has changed. 10 years ago when Arsenal did it, you could still buy, good players for 20, 30 million. Now, if you're going to spend $1 billion on a new stadium and you don't want to spend more than 40 million on a player, you're not going to get anywhere. And that's why I'm saying, if we want to build a stadium, fine, do it. It's in the plan anyway. It's going to happen unless something major happens. But, if we want to do that and we don't want to look at it financially, want to be stable and want to make money so we can, once the stadium is done, rise, if you will, use the youth, because there's just repeat myself, there's no point of signing the players that we've signed over the last few years. There's just no point.
But let me throw a few things in here. Here's what I'm thinking. Obviously, my points in it being an investment, for example. But then, at the same time, too, first of all, you made the point that it's not the right time to do it. But then you could argue when is the right time. And I know your point. You gave your point, which was obviously in regards to investment on players. So basically, I just want to give my thoughts on those 2 points. So the first one in regards to the right time. But think about it like this. Obviously, we've become self-financing. I think this is the year where we're in a positive in terms of revenue for the year. And another positive too, Sky, the amount of investment in the Premier League has never happened in the history in this country. It's the biggest investment in football from any country ever. So the amount of revenue on top that these clubs have is incredible. I mean, for example, let's say if Arsenal, let's say if the Premier League was as big when Arsenal were building the Emirates, I'm sure that if, let's say, they knew that, oh shit, this investment's coming in, we'll start planning to get this new stadium 2 years in advance. You know what I mean? Because there's money there. And the third point, let's not forget too, we've signed a new chief director and a new commercial director, because what was announced earlier, I think his name is Chris Townsend and Guy, what's his name? Guy, not Guy Fawkes, Guy something. Guy, you know what I mean? Guy something.
I know what Guy,
yeah, Guy Philly, I don't know. But anyway, but that's what I mean. We've signed guys because now we finally become now a very attractive proposition to Oh, what was that? What was that? I don't want to know what that was. It sounds aggressive. Yeah, that sounds aggressive. You might as well, put that on silent.
Yeah, it's not that kind of live stream.
Yeah, you're on the wrong side for that, man. But like I'm trying to say, we've finally become a very marketable club to obviously invest in. I mean, I think the Nike deal really should speak volumes in terms of how much money we'll potentially be getting coming in. I mean, we cancelled the Adidas deal, and then Nike gave us a ridiculous deal on top, which was negotiated by Marina. Now, when you've got someone like that, Chris Townsend guy, the guy who got all the investments for the Olympics, I mean, and I think he generated record amounts of investment, up to 2 billion, which is crazy. Then you've got another guy, and that guy is something. And I think one of them is a Chelsea fan as well. On top of that, financially, in terms of the future, I don't think we'll get to a point where we won't have money. And I know I sound kind of contradictive in terms of the point I made about Roman. At the same time, I don't know. Obviously, of course, Roman invests a lot in the club. I don't know how deep it goes. And again, and I did make the point too, that's like a worst case scenario type of thing. But you can see already there's safeguards in place in terms of, this is why we've been so strict with following financial fair play, so we can never be fucked in the future. This is why we're bringing in big guys that have brought in massive deals whenever they've been working at previous companies. This is why the new stadium's coming in now, because we'll be making even more money in the next 10 years. Because, as Chris said himself, the plan is by, in the next 8 years to, was it to triple or quadruple the revenue they're bringing in now? I can't remember what it was, but they wanted to bring in at least 80 different type of, investment partnerships with, companies and stuff. I know there's a massive deal that's been secured with a tech company. I think this is why there's Wi-Fi in the stadium. That was a new deal that was brought in. So this is what I mean, you guys. In terms of investment for players, let's not worry, because I know you made that point about, obviously Liverpool signed Van Dijk, United signed big players in Lukaku and Sanchez. If I'm being cynical, you could say, well, what's Van Dijk's introduction done in terms of making Liverpool's defense much better? And obviously United have Lukaku, Sanchez, all these big money guys, but then they got outplayed by Sevilla, who cost nothing. You know what I mean? That's just me being cynical. But here's what I think what the main focus should be, though, isn't in terms of us worrying if we can afford to get players, because we can. The main focus should be the philosophy to bring in the right type of players, because we've spent big money this summer. Let's not forget. Here's the thing, that the mistake we make is that because a lot of these guys weren't goods, we feel that this is why they came in. But again, we signed very average players for big money. 40 million Morata will cost 70. And let's not forget that the other players too. I mean, I made this point too. We were making bids of 60 million for Sandro, which was turned down. We were making Barkley was going to come for 35 million in the summer before he rejected coming. Those bids were still being made for players. But here's the thing. The main thing is that we can't attract them, because one, some of these players don't want to come. And two, obviously, not that we get priced out, because I'm sorry, I'm not going to use them. Pogba to me is an outlier, because if you're paying 20 million to an agent, and if Real Madrid aren't paying that type of money, then you shouldn't even care about that. I think there was the same thing for Neymar and Mbappe.
Lukaku as well, supposedly.
Exactly. But I mean, if you look at Man City, they've spent a lot of money, but then they've spent it on the right signings. Have Man City spent more than 50 million on a player? I don't think they have.
64 on Laporte, I think.
Laporte was the only one. That's the first one they broke. Yeah, exactly. But again, I was on the right type of player. And this is what I'm trying to say. The focus now, because the money is there and it's always going to be there, we need the philosophy, so we bring in the right players. Because I make this point, really, we should have kept Costa. Really, Matic, Costa should have stayed here. We should have only spent money on. I kept saying before the summer started, that's 3 big players. That's what I want to see us do. Now, when you've got guys like Conte talking about, we remember what we were saying at the end of last season. I want a bigger squad. Now, what does bigger squad mean to you? It means you want more backup players. Now, when that's your first, obviously, reference in terms of what you want to do in the summer, to me, I was getting angry, because I'm thinking, well, that's going to waste. I'd rather us focus on 3 top players instead of focusing on 8 players, because, of course, it's going to be very hard to get, because we brought in a ridiculous amount of players in this.
I think we can all agree on that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And I just think that this is what I mean. If there was this philosophy where it's like, because I felt the squad last year was very good. We just only needed about 3 players to make the first 11 even better. You know what I mean? And again, with Conte not wanting to use the youth players for some reason, he thought guys like Baka and Drinkwater would be better than Ruben and Chiloba, and maybe even though Rudiger's decent. I mean, when you got Zuma, all I see is that let's say if you weren't wasting your time signing those 4 players, let's say if you knew, okay, I only want Sandro, I only want Lukaku, I only want this guy, because clubs have budgets anyway. So let's say you've got 250 million in the summer. As long as you don't go over that, you can pay 80 million for one player. You know what I mean? There was never a point where we got priced out. People keep saying we get priced out. We weren't, because we still made those big bids. Let's not forget Lukaku. Remember, everyone forgot this detail. When United came in with the bids, we matched it, but then Lukaku didn't want to sign for us at the end. And this brings up my point I keep saying. The only criticism I'll give the boys, and when it comes to negotiating for some of these big players, when you're starting at very stupid low bids, you're just going to long yourself out even more. So I'm just praying in the summer we're not going to do that same shit anymore.
But that's I completely agree with basically everything you said. The only thing is with the whole, growing financially even bigger and bigger and bigger and quadrupling the revenue. Are you going to be able to quadruple the revenue if you're not in the Champions League? And if you, you're probably not. Yes, big companies will come in because we're in the Premier League.
Yeah.
But some companies will say, well, if you're not in a Champions League, maybe we're not going to go there. Maybe we're going to go to Liverpool. Maybe we're going to go to Tottenham.
Yeah.
Maybe we're going to go to Arsenal or whatever. And then you also have to think about, you said, we did spend a lot of money, which is utterly ridiculous, the amount of money we spent on the types of players we did sign. And I completely agree that that's down to Conte and the board taking too long and matching those bids. It's all well and good, yeah. But there's no point signing Drenny Drinkwater for 40 million and selling Chalobah for 5 million, when in quality there's hardly any difference. Drinkwater's more experienced, but Chalobah's a lot younger. So selling Chalobah with supposedly without a buyback clause, most ridiculous thing we've done all summer, I think. And all of these things combined, and then yes, of course, we have the money. It's just because you're not going to get a very, very, very good player at the moment for 40 million. You're just not going to anymore, and that's just the thing. And if you're, except for 1 or 2, you're not willing to pay more than 40 million, because if the way we're going, if we don't finish in the top 4, there is a huge risk of losing Hazard and Courtois, and Morata eventually. These kind of players, the big players that we do have, and the more of those we do risk losing, the more expensive players we will have to sign to actually get back to the level of competing for trophies, which then, generates more revenue, because the more we're competing for stuff, the more companies want to be involved, because, we're, more marketable. And if we're not willing to spend on players in the build up to that and not be big enough, because, when Arsenal were always the top 4 club still with all the issues, but now that more and more money is coming in, just the money of Roman, he can spend it. Of course, he can spend 200 million on someone if he wants to. Why would he? From his own money, of course, he wants to make it from the club. But there is a way to go to get to that. Like you said, the bigger stadium, getting more and more, deals in, not the Nike money. And if you think about, we've spent less money on net spend than we've made from Carabao, Nike, and Yokohama. Of course, there's staff to be paid, there's securities to be paid, there's wages in general. You have a lot of going out to the club, more than probably you really understand when you just quickly think about it, because a club must have such such huge amounts of outgoing that have nothing to do with the squad itself. But still, when you just have a Nike deal of 60 million, a Yokohama deal of 40 million, a Carabao deal of 10 million, and then you have season tickets and tickets in general, while they're not as expensive as Arsenal, they still give us millions a year. And you have all this money, and then you sign 40 million players. Yes, we signed Morata for 70, and for a striker, we shouldn't have sold Diego Costa, because there wasn't any very, very good strikers out there, because you're not going to get Lewandowski, you're not going to get Luis Suarez. And then you're kind of struggling already with the top strikers that are actually better than Costa, because everyone else, I'd say, a lot of players are on the level of Costa, but there's not many above Costa. So you were always going to struggle if you're going to lose Costa. But, that's why I went back to, that's why I said this about the youth, because I completely agree with you. And I said this multiple times. We should have signed 3 players. And for bigger squad. We should have kept Chalobah and Ruben Loftus-Cheek because of the multiple more competitions. We would have been well able to, use them, constantly. And if you use those players constantly, they will improve. And if they then turn out to be better than the players we do have in those positions, you can play them. If they don't turn out to be better, sell them. Fair enough. If we're losing out on the way of going to the big club, like, Arsenal plan to be the new Bayern Munich, but because everyone else started spending so much more than they probably anticipated when they came up with that, financial plan, they struggle with that a lot more to keep in that position and stay in that position of trying to win trophies while trying to achieve all of that. And if we're saying in 8 years you want to quadruple our revenue, well, that's well and good. But on the way there, if we're not going to finish in the top 4, if we're not competing for anything, that will take longer to actually get those, revenues in. So that's the thing. What I'm worried about is, like, make a decision. Do you want to compete now? Do we want to compete now? And you said about Man City, but why can Man City spend 64 on Laporte and 58 on Mendy and 50 million on Stones and 50 million on Walker? Because they have a good squad around. Because they have Aguero, they have De Bruyne, they have Leroy Sané, they have Fernandinho. Because they spent well on Sané and they got lucky. You can never be 100% sure when you sign a young player, will he be that good?